Okay. Hello everybody, once again. Okay, I can see only one person joining me. Zöhre Dilan Altın Ceyda Safkaya. Is it Altınbaş? Zöhre Dilan. Can you hear me and can you see me? Can you write me a message here? Okay. Now, yesterday we finished chapter 6 and chapter 7 in the second part of the book. Now more people are coming in, joining in. Good. Okay. 5 people in total. And I hope there's going to be more. Right. Now, this is chapter 8, the final chapter of the book. The final chapter of the second part of the book. Okay, chapter 8. And at the beginning of this chapter, he says that I had always a strong impulse that I should sometime recover my liberty, though it was impossible to conjecture by what means or to form any project with the least hope of succeeding. The ship in which I sailed was the first ever known to be driven within sight of that coast. The king had given strict orders that if at any time another appeared, it should be taken ashore, and all its crew and passengers brought in tumbril to Lorbralgrad. He was strongly bent to get me a woman of my size, by whom I might propagate the breed. Now the king wants to find a woman who is in the suitable size, in the same size as Gulliver, because he wants him to have children on this land in Brobdingnag. Okay, so it's a strange project by the king. And Gulliver is trying to find a suitable project, trying to create a suitable project to escape from this country, but he can't. And the only ship that approached to this land was the ship on which Gulliver was working. Now, the king ordered that if any new ship approaches to the coast of this country, then the ship will be brought. The members of the ship, the crew of the ship, will be arrested, and the captain will be brought to the king. So it's impossible for him to find a ship to escape from this land. But I think I should rather have died than undergone the disgrace of leaving a posterity to be kept in cages like tame canary birds, and perhaps in time sold about the kingdom to persons of quality for curiosities. So the problem is he doesn't want to leave children back in this country because he's worried that his children will be kept in cages like himself and they will be sold in the marketplaces, or they will be used to make shows in the marketplaces. So he doesn't want his children to be in the same situation. Okay, I skip to the next paragraph. I had now been 2 years in this country, and about the beginning of the third, Glumdalclitch and I attended the king and queen in a progress to the south coast of the kingdom. Now, what is interesting here is Jonathan Swift makes a criticism of the slave trade. Gulliver, despite being an Englishman, is kept in cages and used to make shows in the marketplaces. So he is an interesting figure to be seen by so many people in the marketplaces. This is a criticism directed against the slave trade of Britain, and in total a criticism directed against the British Empire in total. So for 2 years in this country, and Glumdalclitch carries Gulliver everywhere she travels. The king's wife, Queen, carries Gulliver everywhere where she travels, and Glumdalclitch accompanies him, of course. I was carried, as usual, in my travelling box, which, as I have already described, was a very convenient closet of 12 feet wide. And I had ordered a hammock to be fixed by silken ropes from the four corners at the top to break the jolts. When a servant carried me before him on horseback, as I sometimes desired, would often sleep in my hammock while we were upon the road. On the roof of my closet, just over the middle of the hammock, I ordered the joiner to cut out a hole of a foot square to give me air in hot weather as I slept, which hole I shut at pleasure with a board that drew backwards and forwards through a groove, so he can close his windows or open his windows to look outside. When he came to our journey's end, the king thought proper to pass a few days at a place he had near Flanflasnik, a city within 18 miles of the seaside. So there are so many imaginary names of imaginary cities in this book. Glumdalclitch and I were much fatigued, tired. I had gotten a small cold, but the poor girl was so ill as to be confined to her chamber. So together they are so tired and they are having a rest because Glumdalclitch is a bit sick and Gulliver is very tired. And Gulliver says that I longed to see the ocean, which must be the only scene of my escape if ever it should happen. So he asks Glumdalclitch to take him to the seaside because he wants to see the ocean. I pretended to be worse than I really was and desired leave to take the fresh air of the sea. So he pretends that he is really ill. So he says that he wants to take fresh air alone by himself. So he goes out of his box and walks around on the coast. I shall never forget with what unwillingness Glumdalclitch consented, nor the strict charge she gave the page to be careful of me, bursting at the same time into a flood of tears, as if she had some foreboding of what was to happen. Glumdalclitch doesn't want to let him go, and she starts crying because it is as if she foresees, she guesses what is going to happen. She guesses that Gulliver is going to escape. So she doesn't want to let him go out of his box. But he does. The boy took me out in my box about half an hour's walk from the palace towards the rocks on the seashore. I ordered him to set me down, lifting me up one of my sashes, cast many wistful, melancholy look towards the sea. So the servant takes his box to the seaside and he opens his window without getting out of the box. He opens his window and looks at the ocean. I found myself not very well, told the page that I had a mind to take a nap in my hammock, which I hoped would do me good. I got in, and the boy shut the window close down to keep out the cold. So when he sleeps, the boy from outside shuts his window. I soon fell asleep. All I can conjecture is that while I slept, the page, thinking no danger could happen, went among the rocks to look for birds' eggs. So, the servant who is responsible to look after Gulliver walks away to collect some birds' eggs, because seeing that Gulliver is asleep, he walks away. Then Gulliver is sleeping in his box, all the windows closed, but suddenly I found myself suddenly awaked with a violent pull upon the ring which was fastened at the top of my box for the conveniency of carriage. I felt my box raised very high in the air. He's inside the box and he feels that the box is moving upwards in the air. And then burn forward with prodigious speed. The first jolt had like to have shaken me out of my hammock, but afterwards the motion was easy enough. I called out several times, as loud as I could raise my voice, but to all no purpose. I looked towards my windows and could see nothing but the clouds and sky. I heard a noise just over my head, like the clapping of wings. And then began to perceive the woeful condition I was in. He can hear the flapping of wings outside his box, on top of his box. Then began to perceive the woeful condition I was in, that some eagle had got the ring of my box in his beak, the beak, and the beak with the ring of his box. So the eagle is carrying him, flying in the air in his beak, and he's carrying the box, with an intent to let it fall on a rock like a tortoise in a shell, and then pick up my body and devour it. For the sagacity and smell of this bird enable him to discover his quarry at a great distance, though better concealed than I could be within a 2-inch boards. So now the bird is carrying it and flying in the air, and he can he can feel the smell of the bird. Okay, and the bird drops him in the middle of the ocean. The bird drops him, and now his box is on the surface of the water and among the waves. The waves are terrible, and the bird is there. Gulliver is inside the box, shaking all the time. The next page, next paragraph. I have already told the reader that there were 2 strong staples fixed upon that side of my box. Okay, 2 strong, staples, 2 strong ropes turn around his box, which had no window, and into which the servant who used to carry me on horseback would put a leathern belt, buckle it about his waist. Being in this disconsolate state, I heard, or at least thought I heard, some kind of grating noise on that side of my box where the staple were fixed. Soon after, I began to fancy that the box was pulled or towed along in the sea. So he notices that, he understands that his box, when he is on the surface of the water, is pulled by some people. Okay. For now and then I felt a sort of tugging which made the waves rise near the tops of my windows, leaving me almost in the dark. This gave me some faint hopes of relief, although I was not able to imagine how it could be brought about. I ventured to unscrew one of my chairs, which were always fastened to the floor, and having made a hard shift to screw down again directly under the slipping board that I had lately opened, I mounted on the chair. He stands up on one of the chairs to see outside the window, and I'm putting my mouth as near as I could to the hole. I called for help in a loud voice in all the languages I understood. So he shouts out at the window for help. The next paragraph. I found no effect from all I could do, but plainly perceived my closet to be moved along in the shape of an hour, or better, that side of the box where the staples were and had no window, stuck against something that was hard. I apprehended to be a rock, and found myself tossed more than ever. I plainly heard a noise upon the cover of my closet, like that of a cable, the grating of it as it passed through the ring. I then found myself hoisted up by degrees at least 3 foot higher than I was before, whereupon I again thrust up my stick and handkerchief, calling for help till I was almost hoarse. Now he realizes that somebody is trying to cut the cover of the box and trying to cut the cables. I now heard a trampling over my head, so he can hear that some people are walking on top of his box. And somebody calling through the hall with a loud voice in the English language. If there be anybody below, let them speak. So somebody shouts through a hole on the ceiling of his box. Is there anybody down there? Speak. I answered, I was an Englishman, drawn by ill fortune into the greatest calamity that ever any creature underwent, and begged by all that is moving to be delivered out of the dungeon I was in. The voice replied, I was safe, for my box was fastened to their ship. The carpenter should immediately come and saw a hole in the cover large enough to pull me out. The captain says, don't worry, the carpenter is coming and cut a hole on the box. We'll pull you out. Gulliver is surprised because he thinks that this box should be so small for them. So he forgets the measurement and the proportion, He still feels himself very small and the other people very big. I answered, that was needless. Would take up too much time, for there was no more to be done, but let one of the crew put his finger into the ring, take the box out of the sea into the ship, so into the captain's cabin. Some of them, upon hearing me talk so widely, thought I was mad. They started laughing. Others laughed, for indeed it never came into my head that I was now got among people of my own stature and strength. Now he realizes that he is among the people of the same size as him. The carpenter came and in a few minutes sawed a passage about 4 foot square. Then let down a small ladder upon which I mounted. From thence was taken into the ship in a very weak condition. The sailors were all in amazement and asked me 1,000 questions which I had no inclination to answer. I was equally confounded at the sight of so many pygmies, for such I took them to be, after having so long accustomed my eyes to the monstrous objects I had left. So he looks around him and he sees everybody of his size, the same size as him, but he thinks that they are like pygmies because he is used to seeing huge people. Now he looks at them, they look so small to him, and he calls them pygmies. Okay, I skip the next page and the next long paragraph. So on page 156, I begged his patience to hear me tell my story. So he wants to tell the captain what happened to him and what kind of adventures he has been through, which I faithfully did from the last time I left England to the moment he first discovered me. So he tells them all his story. I skip 2 pages, and at the final page of this chapter, when I came to my own house, for which I was forced to inquire, one of the servants opening the door, I bent down to go in for fear of striking my head, because he thinks that the house is so small. As he is used to seeing big buildings, the house looks so small, so he bends down his head. He doesn't want to strike his head to the top of the door. My wife ran out to embrace me, but I stooped lower than her knees, thinking she could otherwise never be able to reach my mouth. My daughter kneeled to ask my blessing, but I could see her till she arose, having been so long used to stand with my head and eyes to erect above 60 foot. So he's very much used to, looking upwards, so he cannot see his family. His family looks so little and down on the ground. My daughter, having been so long used to stand with my head, eyes up, looking up. I looked down upon the servants, 1 or 2 friends who were in the house, as if they had been pygmies, and I, a giant. And the final paragraph. In a little time, I and my family, friends, came to a right understanding, but my wife protested I should never go to sea anymore. But is he going to stay? Okay, let me finish this session, and I will open the next session in about 5 minutes.